What's up, amigos? It's the Prodigy Maker Show, episode 61. It's Chris Lewitt. I'm back with you talking about summer camp pitfalls. And with the summer season coming up, camp is coming around the corner. I'm getting ready here for our high performance summer camp. So, camp is on my mind. And I wrote a great article for New York Tennis Magazine about summer camp pitfalls and sort of a guide, things to watch out for parents, maybe for some coaches who are thinking about sending their players to summer camp. And I want to share some of those ideas with you guys. And if you're on the show live, if you join the chat, you can ask me any questions you have about summer camp or anything else about junior development. I've been really busy up here in Vermont at the club coaching. I coached like 3 weeks straight. So sorry, guys. I know we have a lot of loyal fans for the show, and you're probably jonesing for some episodes, but I have a few new episodes coming up, and I think we're going to talk about Alcaraz and Nadal a little bit in maybe another short show next if I can get to it this afternoon. But if you're here with me live, feel free to throw in a comment or a question. And as you know, we love to talk about junior development and high performance training, anything in that in my area of expertise. It's going to be tennis training and junior development, technical training, and of course, what's going on with Spanish tennis and Spanish tennis training. That is my wheelhouse. So without further ado, let's talk about summer camp. And summer camp can be a really great experience for kids where they can improve and make a lot of progress. But unfortunately, many kids find that they underperform at summer camps and in summer academy programs. So I think it's really important to do your due diligence. And if you're a parent or you're a coach who's thinking about sending your kid to a summer program, that you make sure there's the right fit. And that can be sometimes difficult to find a good fit for your player. But talking about pitfalls, in my latest article for New York Tennis Magazine, coming out, I think it's coming out this month, I had a player who's I have a lot of parents contacting me for summer, for my summer program, coming up here to the mountains of Vermont and training seriously with me. And I think we run a very good summer program. Maybe I'm biased, but she said that she sent her daughter to a very famous academy in Florida. And I hear this a lot. I've heard this sentiment from other parents as well, because I'm sort of in the, I'm in the business. And she told me that her daughter went to this famous academy that's very well known for its technical expertise. And they changed everything and sent her home. And subsequently, she was lost and really struggled. And I think that is maybe one of the more rare stories you hear from summer academies, because most summer programs don't like to change too much technique, and that can be that's maybe the next pitfall that I'm going to talk about and discuss more. But for those academies that do want to work on a player's technique, you have to be really careful that they don't change too much, or that they don't overwhelm your kid. Because if you send your player to a program for just a few weeks or even a month, and they make a lot of substantive changes, that can have a dramatic effect on the trajectory of your child's tennis game, and potentially in a very negative way, because changing grips, changing swing paths, changing back swings and forward swings, making significant changes to movement patterns, significant changes to serve technique. Those kind of rewirings, usually they take a lot of time. They're not usually quick fixes that you can accomplish in just a week or two. And sometimes they can really affect the player's confidence. And so I think if there's no follow-up, if there's no way for the program to provide support and follow-up for the player, then it can be potentially catastrophic for someone to be rummaging around in the technical drawer, taking a kid and putting them in the garage, as I like to say, in the workshop, and sort of or to use another analogy, like a medical analogy, taking a player and bringing them to the surgery department and starting to perform different types of surgeries on that player, technical surgeries. As you know, with surgery always comes risk, risk to the health of the player. So if you are looking at camps, and be sure to check and see, is this a place that is very dogmatic and rigid about technique? Do they have a very strict technical system where your player will have to conform and do things in a certain strict way? I got a good quote. Someone's in the chat. It's I didn't think anyone was on, but I see that we do have some people in the chat, and I just lost that chat. Josh, can you just repost that, because with my YouTube, maybe I can get it here. Yeah, with the YouTube live, the chat comes and goes, and I don't see an option for me to rewatch it. So send me any question that you have. Anyway, with technique, you have to be super cautious. If you want your player to learn technique, thoughts on Alcaraz. Everyone wants to know about Alcaraz. Maybe I should. That's really the show. So what would you like to know about Alcaraz? I was just interviewed by. It's kind of cool. I got contacted by Danish Broadcasting Corporation from Denmark, and they asked me they did an interview with me and asked me a lot of questions for an art. They were doing background on an article they're writing, because it's such a big topic in the news. I think I should do a separate show on Alcaraz and Nadal, and their similarities and differences, and how it relates to the Spanish way of training. But if you have any specific questions about Alcaraz, let me know. I of course I did this show with Gil, Monday Match Analysis, which is another YouTube show, and we talked about Alcaraz and Nadal. The fact that Alcaraz is super talented and he's rising very quickly. I don't know if he can ever achieve what someone like Nadal has, because Nadal has 21 slams and he's an absolute legend, maybe one of the greatest, arguably one of the greatest of all time. And we'll have to wait and see if Carlito can achieve even a third or a quarter of that success. He'll have to win his first Grand Slam and start from there. I think he probably can win some slams, but can he be as good as the big three? Winning multiple Grand Slams, winning 20 Grand Slams is far away from winning just a handful. And to be top 10 in the world is not the same as being number one and being one of the greatest of all time. So I think he potentially could be number one. He potentially could win slams. But it's very exciting. It's very exciting for Spain. But I hear everyone talking about him like it's a lock, like it's a sure thing. And I think he's great. And he really demonstrates a lot of fundamental Spanish values, and not only technically and tactically, but also psychologically, and in terms of his character and his attitude. He really is a wonderful example of the type of player that they like to build in Spain. So on many different levels, but I just think the jury's still out on whether he has what it takes to be one of the greatest. And nevertheless, I think he will be. He's obviously a star, and it's very exciting for me. It's very good for Spanish tennis. Spanish tennis was really in its twilight, really struggling the last decade, 10, 15 years. And there was almost a panic in Spain that once Nadal retired, they would have no one on top. So this is just incredibly lucky and fortuitous that Alcaraz has kind of jumped onto the scene or onto the stage just as Nadal is still there, but Nadal maybe has a few more years with his career, and it looks like Alcaraz will be able to replace Nadal with incredible star power. So it's fantastic for junior development in Spain, fantastic for the Spanish sporting culture and the public there. So it's very exciting on that in that respect. And I think I use Alcaraz a lot when I'm teaching as a role model for my players, not only in terms of his technique and his tactics and the way he moves, the way he plays, but also in terms of his character and his humility, his respect, his hard work, and his willingness to suffer. Those are all important aspects of the Spanish way. So a lot of good things there. I just think that a lot of people seem to have just sort of accepted that he's going to be, or confirmed already that he's going to be the next Nadal, and nobody, I don't know if anyone can match what Nadal has done. Nadal is, to me, one of the greatest players ever, and as good as Alcaraz is, I don't know if he'll be able to match. It's just not a fair comparison, perhaps, to try to be as good as Nadal. Winning a couple slams for Alcaraz and making number one would be, I think, plenty good. So let's see what he can do. We'll talk about it more in episode 62 of the program. We're going to do another show on that because it is really in the news. Everyone's very excited about what Alcaraz is doing, and he is electrifying. So getting back to camp and summer academies, be careful if you're sending your kid to a place. Make sure that they're not too dogmatic and rigid about technique. It can have potentially catastrophic results. If you do want a camp to work on your child's technique, like at our camp, we do that, and I love working on technique and biomechanics. I usually am very careful to make sure there's a way for me to follow. If I'm performing surgery on a player, I make sure that there's a way for me to follow up with their team back home. I make sure that there's a way that I can support that player, potentially work with that player during the school year, not just in the summer, so that the player is not lost, because it's very common that if you start making technical changes, that the player, there's like a honeymoon period, and the player is sort of buys in the beginning, but then you send them home and they don't feel as confident. They lose control. They maybe their technique backslides a little bit, and bam, sure enough, bang, sure enough, you have a problem, and there's no one there to help solve it. And so all of that work can be lost very easily when you're doing technical work. And I have a lot of experience doing technical work, and sometimes I can get it done in a short time, but I mean, it's very complicated work sometimes with certain players, certain athletes, and even if the technique looks like you've made a good change, you send the player away, and they're no longer at your summer program, and they can easily backslide. They can easily revert to old muscle memory. So it's a very delicate and careful process that has to take place to help kids with technique in the summer. So at the same time, I caution and advise parents to watch out for places that do too little technique, because that seems to be more en vogue than places, except for that one very famous academy in Florida. And you guys who are in the tennis world, you probably know what academy I'm referring to, and who is the guru there, who also doesn't teach any of the camp programs, just gives privates all day. So you can't actually get his expertise if you sign up for his camp, unless you pay a lot of money for privates, which that's another thing maybe you should watch out for if you're a parent. But anyway, most camps in the summer, I think they've just given up on technique altogether, and for the reasons I was saying, how difficult and delicate a process it is to improve someone's technique. They've just decided to work on some tactics and play some matches. And what I see is that year over year, summer over summer, players can get lost in these types of summer programs, and technical flaws and bad habits just continue ad infinitum year over year, and no one ever fixes them. Like so you have players with real shoddy technique, real biomechanical inefficiencies, potentially technical issues that may cause an injury, down the road. So something that's potentially injurious, or something that's very inefficient, biomechanically inefficient. And these players are not, none of it's ever addressed, because the camps have, and the camp directors and staff, they know how difficult it is to make good technical changes. So in that, and how hard it is. And in that respect, I give a lot of respect to that academy in Florida that tries its best. But I see so many kids damaged by overzealous coaches trying to change too much technique and force kids into a technical box. And there's another one in Florida I can also think of. There's actually two coaches and academy programs in Florida that I know that are actually like that. Not too many. Definitely not the Spanish academy. So Spanish programs are classically, legendarily, hands off when it comes to technique, and that's one of their strengths in a way, because what when you send your kid to a Spanish style program, no one's gonna probably mess up their technique too much, which is a nice thing to know when you send your kid to camp. At the same time, some Spanish programs are too hands-off in the same way that I'm talking about, where nothing, technical things don't get addressed in enough detail, and so inefficiencies and poor technique sort of gets passed along to the next place, and so on and so forth for many summers, and that's a shame too, because then you have players who maybe could benefit from some detailed technical instruction, help with their biomechanics, more detailed footwork instruction, especially serve. You see many kids who have the serve is the most complex biomechanical movement in tennis. So you see naturally you see a lot of inefficiencies and poor technical developments in the serve. And so you many times you see the technique on the serve not really addressed at summer programs, which is a shame. And those, so they just pass the player on to the next school year program or to the next summer program, and so a player could go through many summers without seeing improvement in their technique. So that is also something to watch out for as a parent or a coach. If you want your child to improve technically, try to speak with the camp director, ask them what is their philosophy on technique. Do they have a very strict technical program? Do they have do they have very broad parameters for technique? Do they make technical changes, or do they think it's sort of a futile effort in the summer camp setting? A lot of camp directors, rightly or wrongly, believe that it's futile to make any kind of significant technical changes. And then there are those select few that I mentioned who are actually the opposite. They think that they got to change every single kid that walks through the door, because I think because of hubris and because of it's almost like an ego trip. Like everybody's got to do it our way, and there's no other acceptable way, which is equally problematic. So I think try to find something in the middle. Some of the Spanish programs do that very well. I think here in my academy, we strike a really nice balance, because I usually just ask the parents, and I speak with the coaches of the players back home, and I think we, not to to sound too egotistical myself, but I think we really try to get that balance right. And it starts with just communication, like talking to the kid, a player, and saying, "Hey, do you want to work on your technique this summer? Do you have things that you'd like, or their coaching team back home, or their parents, and say, would you like us to perform some surgeries here, or or if we do this surgery, it might take 3 to 6 months additional work after summer. Do you want me to get started on that? Do you want me to introduce those biomechanical changes to your player, and then provide some follow-up and some support later on?" Like, those are the kind of conversations I like to have. I think that's a really responsible way to work with kids in the summer, especially if they're not your private students that you see year round. And I guess most places don't even think to have that conversation. They just either do or they don't. They're either going to change or not change. I think it starts with a conversation. Some kids want to come to camp and they don't really want to change that much. They want to work on match play and maybe work on some tactical patterns. And I think that's okay. Like, you don't have to say, okay, well, don't come here then. If you don't want to fix your technique, then get the hell out of here. My old coach used to talk to parents and kids like that all the time. And if they didn't want to work on techniques, all right, go to the next camp. He would say, get the hell out of here. I don't like to say that. I say, okay, you want to come? We work on that, and I do have certain standards that I want. Like, you've got to come and work hard in fitness. I've lost some very top-ranked players who didn't want to do fitness. They just want to hit balls, and they didn't want to go to the gym or run or do any kind of multi-directional speed or work on endurance or footwork. So I have my limits, but in general, try to be balanced. I try to be balanced and open to working on different things with the player. After all, a player may be there a couple weeks. Not every player can come for the entire summer. I like when a player comes for the entire summer, because you can spend many 6-7 weeks with a kid and really make a difference. But if a kid comes for a week or two, how much can you actually change? If they want to do a lot of focused technical work, then that has to be very carefully planned out. And there has to be follow-up support for that player, because there's always the potential that the player might backslide or revert. Reversion is really common. Even if you make technical gains at camp, it's very common to revert after a camp is over. And so there has to be support post-camp for that player. And some kids want to do they want to maybe clean up their forehand, or maybe clean up their serve technique, but they don't want to change a lot of other stuff. And that's okay too, but there has to be good communication to figure out what the plan is. And I guess having a plan is key. And as parents, if you're looking at a camp, you got to know what is the head coach going to do? Is he going to go in there and start messing around, tinkering with everything, or is he going to basically not make any changes at all because your player is there for just a week or two? You got to know what is the philosophy of the camp owner or director, whoever is running the hospital, the surgery department. You have to find out what is the plan here. What's going to happen? Don't just send your kid away and say oh, we'll see what happens. Because it could be bad. It could be good, could be bad. It's too risky. Anyway, I mentioned in the article that ratios are really important. I think as a parent, that's probably a very important question you would want to ask head coach. What is the ratio? How many players do you put on the court? So, and how many coaches do you have for each player? So what does a typical practice look like? In many of the best Spanish academies, they have, and in our summer program, which is Spanish based, you try to have 2 players per coach and court. So that is very high quality, and I would say more rare. Most summer camps put 4 kids on a court with the coach, and sometimes they put more, 4 or 5 or 6 players with a coach, which I think is really problematic, especially in a larger summer camp settings where many times the experience of the coach is very important. Try to find out if the coaches who's going to be working with your kid, in summer camp. You need to know, is it just a local high school kid Is it a local D3 college kid? Is it one of the top Division I players in the country who has are those who is coaching your? Is it the normal academy coaches who work with all of the year-round players? A lot of academies sort of hire staff just for the summer that are like they're not the normal academy coaches. A lot of famous academies do that because they're overwhelmed with large numbers, so they have to hire out like temp staff. Is the head guru working with your kid every week or every day? Probably not. I mentioned there's that famous academy where the head honcho, the big cheese, it doesn't even do any of the groups at all. That's problematic. Who is going to be coaching your kid? Who is going to be delivering information to your kid? Who is overseeing each player's training? Is that a very experienced coach, or is that someone who doesn't have a lot of experience, someone who's just learning? And if it's okay to have a staff of college players, I have some really good Division I players who I just hired, like 13 UTR Division I play. I have them sparring with all the top-ranked juniors who are here. Like those guys, they don't have a lot of coaching background, but I will train them and guide them, and I will be on court with them, making sure that they do a good job. So that's how I ensure that there's good quality. That even though they're younger college guys, I got my eye on them all the time because I'm on the court all the time. I'm not sure other summer programs work like that, because you might have some, and there's a big difference between a 13 UTR Division I player, big difference in terms of knowledge and like technical skill, than like a D3 UTR 9 player. Big difference in terms of knowledge and quality. And even then, you're going to have some young staff in the summer, but are they well supervised? Are they trained? Is someone guiding them all the time, making sure that they don't mess up your kid? Because it's normal for a summer camp to hire some good college players. I hope you definitely don't want some of the lower quality camps might hire like local high school players or players that don't have a lot of skill or knowledge at all, which is that's not really what I'm getting. I'm talking more from a high performance angle, where most academies will have, some college players, former college players, maybe a former tour player, and even sometimes with the former tour player, they might not have a lot of coaching background. You have to make sure that person is knowledgeable, experienced, and will be supervised in terms of the coaching, and that the head coach is planning all of the training for each player. That's very important. If you send your kid for 1 month with a young college kid who doesn't have a lot of experience, I don't know how much improvement you're going to get out of that, even if it's at a famous academy. So the level of the coaching staff is really important. And are they well supervised? Are they trained, or are they just like out there doing their own thing with no one ensuring that the instruction is high quality? I think that is really important. So watch out for temp staff. Watch out for we'll talk about famous academies in a moment, but that's common. Watch out for large academies in the summer. Big academies that run large summer camps, they usually have to have temp staff, temp coaches, because they have to manage all of the, you could have potentially hundreds of students coming in for a summer. A lot of famous academies make a lot of money that way, but they can't possibly have their best coaches, their best school year coaches working with all of those players, the influx of players that come in. They need those coaches to continue working with their most more their full-time players, and got to be careful. You want to make sure that the coach working with your kid is experienced and going to provide high quality instruction, right? So another issue with summer camps, just quickly, is fitness. So what I've found is a lot of camps, they don't do serious fitness, and maybe you want that, but the people that listen to this show and people who are into high performance junior development, they want professional fitness training. So as a parent, I would definitely check and see who is running the fitness. Is that person well trained? Does that person have an exercise science degree or exercise science background? The higher, the better. Master's degree, certification with the CSCS, a Certified Strength and Conditioning Coach, is typically the gold standard in exercise science and in training, which is an NSCA, National Strength and Conditioning Association credential. But is it just some guy like the tennis coach? Is some college kid doing some stuff in the gym? I mean, you don't want that. You want someone who is professionally trained and professionally guided, is professionally supervised. You want someone with an exercise science background running fitness, and you want a serious fitness program. So at many summer camps, the fitness is watered down. The fitness is really lowest common denominator, poor quality fitness. And I think in the summer, my personal belief is that that's a great time to work like an animal and to really get your fitness up, to make gains in your strength, in your endurance, in your speed and agility, and also to work really hard to prevent injuries. To me, that's what a really good summer camp should offer. Unfortunately, it's not the most popular thing. For a lot of kids just want to go and hit balls, and so I think a lot of camps they water down their fitness, or they eliminate their fitness, or they just sort of they play like water polo in the pool, or they go swimming, and like that's their fitness, but that's not really real strength and conditioning. So try to look for a program if you have a kid who wants that. I'm not talking about parents who have like lazy kids who don't want to work, but if you have a kid who like really wants to be a good player and takes their fitness seriously and understands that fitness is the backbone, is like the heart and soul of a good tennis player. You need to be very strong in your fitness to be a champion tennis player. Then make sure that you're sending your kid to a place that takes that stuff seriously. It starts with the person that the camp hires. Do they have someone professionally trained doing that? And it also depends on what their philosophy is in the summer, because please watch out. A lot of camps, the philosophy is very light fitness because they don't want anyone, to get hurt. They have a lot of kids coming in who are recreational, who are not, they don't have a good level coming in for fitness, so that they don't want to get those kids injured. They don't want those kids, it's bad for business, to work a kid too hard, and then they're too tired, and then they complain, and they're not happy, they get hurt, and they want a refund, or so a lot of places they're catering to players who are more recreational. They got hundreds of players coming in, large numbers of players coming in, so they just can't, like, it doesn't make financial sense for them to offer a professional fitness strength and conditioning program. So watch out for places like that, because if you want something really serious and intense and demanding in terms of the fitness regimen for your child, most camps have just sort of eliminated. They just don't do that anymore. So you got to find the needle in the haystack of the really good ones who take fitness seriously. And I think the summer is a prime time to develop better fitness and better injury prevention and all those things that I mentioned: speed and agility and strength and power. It's a great time to put together a high performance fitness plan. And I think camps are a great place to do that. We have groups of players who help motivate each other. It's really fun to work on fitness with your peers, and I just think camp is a perfect place to work on that. Watch out for all sport camps. I don't like all sport camps from a high performance point of view. I have players who get they get caught up in the all sport camps. So they're very popular here in the Northeast. Some of these camps have a great tradition. They've been around forever, and so the families. Some families have like a tradition of sending their kids to the same all sport camp, like traditional sleepaway camps. And I think these are really good places, like social places, to make friends and to learn certain values of character and things like that. But they're not good places to learn tennis. And the tennis instruction is going to be relatively mediocre. The fitness instruction is the same, and the players that those camps cater to are going to be more recreational in nature. And so overall, I see a lot of kids squander their summer by going off to a social, traditional kind of like sleepaway, like a New England. I don't know what they have in other parts of the country, but here in New England, there's a lot of sleepaway camps that are like traditional traditions in like family traditions, like generations have gone there. I just think those types of camps are obviously they're I have no problem with them from a non-tennis perspective, but if you want your kid to get really good at tennis, don't fall for like the sales pitch that, oh yeah, we do all the sports and we do all this other stuff, and then also have a really good tennis program, because it never works out like that. And the kids who go there are not that serious. So your kid ends up, if your kid wants to be serious, they're gonna be like one of the few. You want to surround your kid with other kids who are also serious and pushing themselves. The environment matters. The environment for the summer program matters. So I would just watch out. Caveat emptor, buyer beware. Watch out for camps that are doing all the sports, like lots of sports. They give you a whole like smorgasbord of sports that you can choose, or camps that are like typical wilderness camps where kids sleep over but they have tennis. I have a question not related to camp from John. What's up? He says, what made you become a tennis coach? Well, the main reason I'm coaching is because I got injured. I would much rather be playing on the pro circuit. And my dream since I was a little kid was to play on the pro circuit. And I have to say that that's a huge, huge failure in my life, that I played some futures and that's it. Never made it to the ATP Tour. Had a lot of injuries. I still have a lot of physical problems that I'm managing. Just bad luck, I guess. But that got me into coaching. Like a lot of former players, they get into coaching, and I found out that I actually have a gift for coaching. I never really wanted to get into coaching or teaching. Found out I had a gift for teaching, basically, and I have this way with children. Like I have, they sort of, the children really dig my vibe. Like I have a magnetic quality with children. So I never thought that I never knew that I had that, and I just over the years, because I was injured, I wasn't playing on the futures circuit, and so I started teaching to make some money, like a lot of guys do, a lot of young guys, like just after college and that's how it started. And really, the only reason I got into high performance coaching is because of Gilad Bloom, who's my former coach. He's an amazing coach, an amazing former player. He was a Davis Cup player for Israel. And Gilad Bloom was a ATP Tour player in the 80s and early 90s. And I just saw what he was doing with high performance, and I was like, this is kind of cool. I never saw myself teaching at a club or like being a country club coach, but he was doing like his own business. So it was entrepreneurial. He was his own boss, and he was like very hip dude, and he was coaching kids there very intensely, kind of like the military, and like that appealed to me because my whole family's in the military. So that's what kind of got me interested. I was like, I really like what this guy's doing. Like this guy's kind of cool, and he's making good money because he's doing his own business. That appealed to me. I don't like having a boss. So that's how I got into high performance. I was like, oh, I can be my own boss. I can sort of I can be tough and get to play tennis. I still play. I like to play with all my students, which is a real joy. To get out. I really enjoy getting out in the tennis court, not just feeding balls, but I still like to compete and play with all my students, which is fun. And I love kids. So I found that I do love kids and mentor. I like mentoring young kids. So, what can I tell you? It's either that or maybe going into the military, becoming like a college professor or something. Or those are kind of like a minister maybe. Those are like kind of my top list of professions. I was like minister, professor. I've always been a writer, so I still write, but now I write tennis stuff, tennis books, tennis articles, and then uh, military. Like, military has always been interested in that, some sort of like law enforcement or military. I have back in my family, we have a lot of Air Force and Army, going back generations into the mid 19th century. Anyway, I combine all those qualities now into coaching, and it works. It works for me. I don't know how it works, but it works, and I like it. I've been doing it for a long time now. That's a miracle that I stuck with something for 20 years. I'll tell you that. Anyway, be very careful. Let's wrap this show up. Let's talk about these large camps and famous camps. Just be careful for some of the reasons that I said. Large camps. Just try to understand that when I have 30, like we take around 30 players in my summer program. That to me is a lot, and I can't imagine having 300 players coming in on Sunday, or 150 players, or even 100 players. I mean, it's a massive amount of kids. It's organized chaos, and you got to understand that it's very hard for the staff and the director. I don't care how good they are, is to provide personal attention and to provide customized coaching to if there's just such a large so many players coming into the program and running around. In you very much at the height of summer, at very large academies or famous academies, it's very much like survival mode. Like, we're just going to try to survive this onslaught of players coming in, because hundreds of players is chaos. So, I mean, at least that's the way I see it. So just be aware of that. And if you do want, if you're not looking for like an experience of just going to a famous camp, there are big famous academies like IMG, or Nadal Academy, or Muratoglau. There's a really kind of like celebrity academies, and usually they have really large numbers. Just it's okay to go to those places for the experience of like training at Nadal's academy, or training at Muratoglau's academy, or training at the Bollettieri IMG. Like that, those places are pretty incredible academies, especially for the higher level players who get the most attention there. I'm not sure you get incredible training if you're just the regular player who goes there. But I think the level of training can be uneven at a lot of those big famous academies. But certainly they have great training opportunities for the elite players. But if your kid's dying to go there and train where Rafa trains, you can do that. Just it is what it is. It's gonna be jammed, and it's going to be a great cultural experience, or just an experience, like a great memory. But you can't expect like to get the same personal attention at some huge famous academy the same level of personal attention that you get at a small boutique place. So that's just a fact. So just consider that. And if you just want your kid just dying to go to the south of France and visit Nice, that's fine. That's fine. If your kid's dying to go to Mallorca or Barcelona or wherever, that's okay. Just your expectations should be reasonable when you understand like the dynamics of what's happening in the summer at those places. There's a massive influx of people, and that creates a lot of chaos for the summer staff. Anyway, psychology. I get some requests now for psychology programs at summer camp, and let's just end on that note. I think it's a little bit comical if a parent requests psychology sessions, but doesn't have much interest in how the quality of the fitness program. Because to me, I very much believe that the foundation of good mental toughness and competitiveness and being mentally tough is a strong fitness, endurance, and being a better athlete is going to help. So if a player's out of shape, I'll say it a different way. If a player's out of shape, that's going to affect their mental toughness and their emotional control and their entire competitive psychology. So consider that whether you maybe you buy into that or not, if I could convince you or not. But if you have a few weeks or a month at summer, I think the most bang for your buck is a strong fitness program where your kid's going to learn discipline and physical. They will receive a physical education. They will learn how to prevent injury, work on speed, strength, and agility, perhaps, or maybe develop some power in a certain area. And anything like that to me is really valuable. Develop their endurance. And of course, there is lots of sports psychology that can be taught to a player, that can be helpful for a player. There's a lot there in the sports psychology realm. But I just think in a summer camp setting, what I've noticed is some camps start to offer that psychology program, and it starts to actually cut into the physical training time, like the gym. It can cut into the tennis training time, and I just don't think it's a great fit for summer. Try to think as a parent: would your kid benefit? Is your kid really going to benefit from a few sessions a week of just general psychology principles with someone? Maybe, maybe. A lot of times those principles can be interwoven onto like good tennis coaches kind of work on that on the court with those general things, like when a player's competing or when a player's playing points and all the on-court stuff. Good coaches are kind of working on assessing and working on some of those important psychological building blocks. I think, at least we do in my program. So it's sort of interwoven into the tennis training. And the idea that you need a separate class with someone to go over that, I'm not sure it's the best fit for summer, because the summer's already jammed and you have limited time during the week. I think if a kid really needs psychology, it might be best to do that in maybe scheduling private sessions with the psychologist, or doing that more during the school year. That's kind of where I'm at with psychology. I do get those requests from parents from time to time. I say, yes, we have a psychology program, but it's interwoven into the tennis training. It's not separate, and I think it's so important to get the fitness right. I just think it's like putting the cart before the horse. You need to have the fitness level to sustain good psychology. And if it makes no point in studying with the best psychologists in the world. You bring in Dr. Jim Lair, the legend, if you're out of shape, because as soon as you get tired and as soon as you fatigue, emotional control is very difficult. Mental control, focus is very difficult. Your strategy and tactical planning is very difficult. Everything becomes difficult when you are tired. So that's usually the way I see it. And in the limited time that you have in a camp, I just think that time can be better used whipping your butt into shape, getting strong, and you can work on some mental skills in fitness with a good. I don't know any great fitness trainer who doesn't work on the psychology of a player in the gym and on the track and wherever. And the same on the tennis court. Good tennis coaches are always working on that on the tennis court. So it's not that you say that psychology is not important, but I say the most important is your fitness level and getting serious about your fitness. And then let's work on your psychology in an integrated way on the tennis court, in the gym, etc. Rather than scheduling a fancy session in the classroom that may or may not really have an impact. So that's kind of where I am about psychology for summer camp. Well, let me know if you agree or disagree. I'm still kind of debating that in my own mind, but that's the way that I see it. So I hope some of these pitfalls help you. If it's summer camp season, I'm getting signups all the time. We're almost full for our camp, which is great. Um, I'm excited that we're starting here. We start here our camp in June 13th, so really about a month away. I can't believe it. Summer's here again. And we have kids boarding here. We have kids coming up with their families, and you can be a day student or board with us. If you're interested in our program, just shoot me an email or let me know. Oh, I forgot. I promised one of our viewers to answer a quick question from the email grab bag. Very exciting. We have a big fan of the show, Scott Austin, I think, and he has a question. We'll try to answer your email question. Scott says that I should ask all of you, the viewers, to send me your questions via email. My email is chris@chrislewitt.com, and you can send me any email questions about junior development to there, and I will actually answer those. We used to do that in the past, Scott, about a couple of years back with the show, and then I don't know what happened. I probably got busy with other things, and we can definitely reinstitute that and answer email questions on the program. So the question that Scott had for me is, I'm reading it. Over the years, several coaches have discouraged my daughter from ever hitting a slice or backspin backhand. They want her to always use topspin on her backhand and forehand. Do you agree with that? Do you think the backhand slice is still a valuable shot that should be employed? So it's a really good question, fairly common question. The slice is a really important shot at the high level. Pretty much all the great coaches that I've studied with develop the slice. Maybe some more than others. I can tell you that in Spain, like Luis Bruguera was sort of, I don't want to say anti-slice, but not a huge fan, especially he felt it like sort of made the game complicated for some kids. He wanted them, for some players, he wanted them just to kind of keep the game simple and drive the ball. But he always said it depends on the personality of a player. Some players are more creative and they use the slice more. Some players are more one-dimensional. And I'll tell you that, Scott, I've had players who are going to benefit more from the slice. They're creative, and they want to play with more variety, and they want to have those tools. Some kids don't benefit from that very much. Some kids, the way they're wired, like you could it's probably a waste of time to teach them a slice, or spend too much time on it. I would say you probably have to have some kind of slice when you're stretching or for defense, but that's probably a good idea. But the idea that you're going to use it like Federer or Dolgopolov comes to mind, or I think of any of the top players that really use their slice as a weapon or to attack someone or to change the rhythm of the game. Not every player is wired to do that. So that's the first sort of wisdom I could try to help you with, is that it depends on your kid's personality. And I don't know about your daughter. If you sense that she's kind of a creative type and she would benefit from having more variety, more tools like that, by all means, you should teach that to her. But there are some caveats. Some kids, depending on their age, they should hit more topspin and develop their drive first, as a priority, because you shouldn't, like, for example, it's a tricky question because some kids slice because they're not confident in their drive, that should never happen. You should always have a really good, two-hander or one-handed backhand topspin, and the slice should be, it's an additional, flavor or spice that you add to your backhand. It shouldn't be that a player's slicing because they're afraid to hit topspin or they're not consistent with their topspin. So that I don't know what level your daughter is, but if some players will slice when they're nervous, or they'll slice when it's a pressure moment, or they'll slice because they have bad footwork, or they're lazy and they don't want to move, so they'll slice. And some players slice when they shouldn't slice, like bad tactical decision. Some players slice basically when they shouldn't. So I think probably the coaches you referenced, some coaches have that opinion, that the slice is kind of can lead to some bad habits. Like just taking footwork, for example, some players, when you teach them a slice, and now whenever they have a wide ball, they slice. Instead of like moving their feet the extra steps and getting there and ripping the ball, they slice. Or let's say returner serve. Some players, they get a big serve and they chip the return rather than driving it. They chip the return because they've been working on their slice, and they think it's cute or it's going to work. It usually doesn't work. And when you chip your return, a lot of times you get hammered, you get attacked. So just, things like that. It's actually, it's a very good question. It's a complex question because it depends so much on the player. And so a few things I would say is, the personality matters. Like you need an artist to, you need someone who's artistic and creative to really utilize all the full advantages of a good slice backhand. Like you need to have someone who's wired that way. So if you spend all your time, like I've had parents, like, they spend hours a week teaching their kids a beautiful slice, but the kid probably not going to use it that much because they're not really an artist. Like you see someone like Roger Federer, one of the legends, and the way he uses a slice, I'm not sure everyone can play like that. Like even if you teach the mechanics right, not everyone's going to use the slice the way he did. I don't know if he's fully retired now or whatever, if he's coming back or what. I think he says he's going to try to come back, but you're not going to get every player in your stable to play like that, because that's personality, and that's DNA and wiring, and so just think about that. But probably every serious player should have a basic slice. When they're stretched to play defense, sometimes slice is good, or to change occasionally to keep the ball low. I mean, a lot of people don't like low balls, so it's good to have a slice to keep the ball low. And when you develop your slice, you help develop your backhand volley. There's a lot of benefits to developing a good slice. I'm certainly not against the slice, but I would say it's backwards or ass backwards to spend a lot of time on the slice if the player is not solid with the topspin. So to me, topspin is the priority. It's the bottom of the pyramid, or the base, the foundation of the house. And then as you start building the house upwards, you certainly should develop some different variety of backhands, especially underspin backhands. But you can take it to a very artistic level, or you can keep it very simple, depending on the player's personality. So if you sense that you have an artist, and sometimes you do, you get lucky, you say, wow, this kid's really artistic. You can spend more time on the slice. You can develop it from just a standard slice that the player is not going to use that much to something that they're actually going to use a lot to affect the outcome of a match. So you can teach different spins on the slice. You can teach attacking slices. You can teach different angle slices. You can add in drop shot. A lot of creative kids like to use the slice. It's basically a cousin of the drop shot. So you have the drop shot that comes into play there. So there's a lot of cool stuff you can do there if you have an artist if your son or daughter is an artist, or if you're a coach, if you recognize the creativity in a player that you're coaching, then it's probably a good idea to start developing that. But it comes with a lot of pitfalls because, like I said, when a player starts learning the slice, maybe they don't spend as much time on their I would say most kids are two-handers, but their topspin two-hander or one-hander, and then it creates more indecision for a player. Luis, my mentor in Spain, Luis Bergera, he didn't like the slice that much. He wasn't a huge fan because he didn't like that indecision that it created in the player. He liked the player's mind, like just locked in on driving the ball, and not to have too many thoughts about like, oh, what should I do now, or like and some kids some kids really struggle with that decision making. You know, they're not, maybe they're not that creative, not that artistic. They're not sure when to use the slice, and so it becomes a problem in match play and in tournaments because they either use the slice at the wrong time, or it creates sort of a little bit anxiety because they don't know when to do which one, and so that can be problematic. So just watch out for that. Try to figure out if you have an artist there. I would definitely say everyone should have like something with the slice. Even the best two-handers should have a slice for certain situations. But the idea that all the players are going to play like Roger and use the slice like someone like Roger, or you can think of artistic players over the history of the game. It's not likely. So I hope that helps. It's kind of interesting topic. It's probably maybe a longer discussion, but I hope some of those thoughts helped you, Scott. All right, I'll see you guys on the next program. I think we're going to talk about Alcaraz and Nadal. Very topical discussion. It's been a pleasure. God bless and adios, amigos.